There's no worse feeling than taking hours out of your already busy schedule to dedicate to building muscle, only to find out that all of that hard work that you've put in has done absolutely nothing for you because you still look the same way you did 3 months ago. So to save you another 3 months of trial and error, I've come up with 7 signs that you're not training hard enough and how to correct them so you could start making the gains that you've been making sacrifices for. And if you want to continue to correct some of those bad habits that you've built up outside of training intensity alone, I've put together a list of the 7 daily habits that you must be implementing if you want to maximize your muscle growth. You can grab it for free with the link in the description below. So the first sign that you're not training hard enough is actually something I did a lot of when I first started. And it directly led to me underperforming without me even realizing it at first. If you're just jumping into every set that you're doing without thought, you're minimizing the chances of making that set count. Maybe you're thinking about something unrelated or checking your phone or even having a conversation with someone. And then once that's over, without hesitation, you just grab the weight and start pumping out reps. Sound familiar? And if you're truly training with the focus and effort necessary for optimizing muscle growth, then you shouldn't be jumping into sets mindlessly. You should need a brief moment to pause and clear your mind. You need to be able to mentally prepare for the set that you're about to do and establish your goals beforehand so you know exactly what you did last time and what you need to do this time in order to progress. You also need to be fully aware of what muscles you're attempting to target and the form cues that are necessary for maximizing muscle activation. And even after all that, you still need to establish how close to failure you're going to go. You can't just expect to jump into the set and then figure it out as you go along. Maybe it's 1 rep short of failure, 2 reps short of failure. It's something that you need to decide on before jumping into the set, not on the fly. And this isn't a sign to just overanalyze every set to death and that you need to turn into some science-based optimal lifter just to see any measurable progress. All I'm saying is that you will benefit heavily from a quick 5 to 10 second period before you start your set where you mentally lock in and establish your goals ahead of time. So now that you know what you should be thinking before you start a set, how about what you actually feel? The second sign is something that especially applies to those heavier compound lifts. In my case, it was always heavier leg exercises. And why it might sound a little hyperbolic at first, it's that if you never feel any sort of nervousness before your sets, then you might not be training hard enough all of the time. If you've ever exerted yourself with high enough effort, then you should know on some sets or even entire workouts, if it's a challenging leg day, you should feel a little bit anxious beforehand because you know what you're about to do is going to be challenging and uncomfortable. And I know in order to deal with this and not let it overcome my workout, I'll sit there and gather myself for a couple seconds, just like with the first piece of advice I gave you. I'll maybe put the right song on my playlist. And sometimes my heart rate will increase beforehand if it's a heavy set of squats that I'm taking to all out failure, because I know this is about to be very physically and mentally tough. And if you're someone that practices the concept of progressive overload like you should on a regular basis, then you know each workout's only going to get a little bit harder as you're striving to do a little bit more each time. It never gets easier. You just get stronger and deal with it. So if you can't relate to what I just said even a little bit, and if you never feel that sensation, if you're always just perfectly happy to perform your next exercise regardless of what muscle group it is, there's a huge chance that you're not training hard enough to maximize your gains. But that isn't to say that that feeling should ever deter you from the process though. If anything, you should start to welcome it when it happens and look forward to it beforehand. And this isn't about being a masochist who enjoys pain all the time. It's about opening yourself up to being a better version of who you currently are. And that kind of progress, well, it goes beyond just making gains in the gym. The gym just ends up being an outlet for you to overcome adversity, and that translates into different parts of your life where you might be struggling. And say you're past the point of being nervous. Well, how about those times where you're into your 4th set on a Bulgarian split squat directly after going to all-out failure on a deep hack squat? If you know, you know. And that leads us to our third sign, which is something that usually goes hand in hand with what I just talked about. And it always occurs during those last couple challenging reps right before failure. You know, the ones that actually build muscle. And that sign is that you've never been in enough discomfort where you get to the point where you ask yourself in your head, why am I even doing this? Is this even worth it? And I'm sure if you're further into your journey, you might be well past this stage, But if you're someone that's starting off and is just getting hip to the concept of training hard consistently and getting stronger on a week-to-week basis, that especially goes if you're someone that's continually moving heavy loads of weight time after time. It doesn't get easier on your nervous system, it just gets easier to deal with psychologically. But anyways, if you have insane motivation or someone that just likes to experience pain all the time and genuinely does not mind this feeling at all, then it's not going to be an issue to you. But someone who's a novice in the gym that's just getting hip to the concept of training hard and pushing to those last few reps is most likely going to feel this at some point. And if that isn't ringing any bells to you, then you most likely just haven't pushed yourself hard enough to where that applies yet. But in my experience, I really know I'm giving it my all when I reach a level of physical and mental discomfort to the point where my brain gets hijacked by it and starts setting me multiple cues to get me to stop what I'm doing. And if you're genuinely training hard on a regular basis, that mental battle is going to happen every once in a while. It's usually some sort of internal conflict where one side is urging you to stop and the other side is telling you to push forward no matter what. And you really have to dig deep to make that right side win. So you might have all the right feelings and intentions at heart, but what about your actual appearance at the gym? Now this one might sound a little goofy, but if you're not occasionally making some ugly ass face on the last rep or two of one of your sets, and unless you're actively trying to do this, if you're someone that's just able to keep your face chill and relaxed throughout your entire movement, and just finishes the set without a care in the world, you don't need to do anything like grimacing, contorting your expression, or even sometimes gritting your teeth because of the general discomfort of the whole situation, then it's safe to say those reps that you were doing weren't that difficult to begin with, and you probably had a few more in the tank. Because if it really is that difficult, it should be more of an automatic reaction that you can't help, especially on those challenging exercises. No one's saying you gotta look like you're in the trenches when you're doing a rear delt cable fly, but on a lot of movements, especially ones that are more discomforting when you get to the end of your set, that response should be automatic from time to time. Looking like you're about to damn near shit yourself on certain reps might make it look like you're training hard, but I know for a fact that doesn't come without certain expressions. And this fifth one is along the same lines and might sound even more crazy, but I'm being completely serious when I say this. It's that if you never let out any kind of involuntary primal sounds during your sets. And again, don't take this as hyperbole, because I'm not saying that you need to be the guy in the gym that's going around excessively grunting on every single set they're doing, regardless of their intensity. And it doesn't need to be known and heard around the entire gym either. But if you're truly training hard, exerting yourself with maximum effort, then you will have those sets where you occasionally let out some sort of grunt, curse word, or other primal utterance. Or at the very least, some sort of large gasp or sigh of relief that your set is finally over. And a lot of the times you don't even realize that it's there. And this one definitely makes sense to me, because when you're doing a really challenging workout that you know is going to be hard, and then you finally overcome it and get to the end of that workout, then you should feel some sort of relief that projects itself via letting out some sort of gasp or sigh, indicating that what you've done has come to an end and you're just glad that it's over, even if it's just subconsciously. But that's not going to come without actually training hard enough to get there. So if you've checked every single one of these boxes and you're not doing any of these things, surely you can't be having fun all the time, right? And sign number 6 directly ties into these last few points as well. And it's something that's constantly being paraded on social media. The best training program is the one that you enjoy doing the most, or if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And of course, there is going to be some truth to that. If you genuinely hate every single workout that you do, then there's a high probability that you're not going to stick to it in the long term, which can end up killing your gains just as hard as not training hard enough. And at the same time, you also should strive to make your training as enjoyable as you can. But then there's this idea that every single workout and set that you perform should be fun, and you should just be breezing through every single set, having the time of your life. That just doesn't hold up when you're trying to maximize your gains. And this isn't just about fitness. This goes for everything else in life, like business, relationships, your personal life. It's not all going to be fun. The most important things that you have to do in your life are usually never fun. That's why they yield the greatest results, because if everybody was doing them, then everybody would be successful, and there'd be no merit to that. You're going to have to do things in life that are not fun, and this applies directly in the gym. Just like how if success was fun in real life, everybody would be rich and famous, the same goes in the gym. If everything in the gym was fun, then everybody in the world would be walking around being shredded and peeled year round. And you and I both know that's just not how reality works. And again, if your goals are more general health and fitness, like maybe achieving a somewhat decent physique and somewhat decent strength gains relative to your peers, then that's perfectly fine. You can go ahead and make the vast majority of your training as fun as you want. But if we're talking about people that want to push their bodies into the top 1 to 2 percentile, I personally say if you're enjoying every single rep of every single set that you're performing, then you're staying too far within your comfort zone to make measurable progress. So once you put all of those together, how should you feel once your training session is over? Do you truly feel like you gave it your best effort? And be honest with yourself. Can you clearly say that the muscles you worked on were properly activated and disrupted? Do you feel a clear sense of mental accomplishment, not just one you're parading in your head to get you through the day? Was the workout actually difficult enough to where you look forward to getting home and relaxing? And in my personal experience over the years, I could tell a lot about how my workout went based on how I answer those questions. If I've actually pushed myself as hard as I want to, once that workout is over, I'll feel that great post-workout high. You know, the releasing of endorphins, the dopamine hits. I'll actually be glad that it's over. I'll know that I did enough, so there'll be no sense or conflict in my head that I could have done more. I know that once I get home, all I'm gonna wanna do is hit the remainder of my calories and chill out and move on to the next day. And this experience will obviously vary depending on what workout you're doing. A higher volume, high intensity, lower body day is going to be much more challenging than a pump focused arm workout. But after your workout, you need to ask yourself, do you really feel like you gave it your all? Or was this just another minor blip in your day and you can go on to do a bunch of physical activity later? And if it's the latter, then you're definitely not training hard enough, because you shouldn't be able to go out and do a workout with equal intensity and focus if you actually train hard enough in that previous workout. You shouldn't be able to go back to the gym 2 hours later and be just as fresh. There should be an obvious sensation that you achieved that's throwing off your body's regular functioning. It shouldn't debilitate you, but it should be a clear sense that what you did was enough to stimulate growth. And these 7 signs that I just went over will help get you closer to answering that question for yourself. If any of these apply to you, I highly recommend shifting your focus on immediately addressing them. And I guarantee that you'll find that once that you do, your intensity and honesty with your training will increase, and so will your results. I know for a fact that once I started applying these, it made all the difference in the world. And that's why I'm making this video for you today. Because once you have these concepts down, you'll get one step closer to being able to gain your first 10 pounds of muscle within 90 days. And if you found this video helpful and want to even deeper dive on these concepts while having direct access to my support, be sure to join my free school community, Muscle Truth University, with the link in the description below. I'll catch you guys on the next one.